I ran to be thin and I ate to be thin. And I actually really am proud of changing that thought pattern in my mind. And so I do way more than I would like to even. And I definitely way more than I was in my 20s. But the way that I care for my body and the way that I fuel my body and all the food groups and the nutrient dense foods that I eat now and how I exercise, gosh, I wish I could have given that to 20-year-old me.
Welcome back to the show. This is a great one today. We could actually call this show Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Perimenopause, but Were Afraid to Ask, or Everything You Ever Needed to Know About Perimenopause, but it wasn't even on your radar to ask. We're going to cover it. I'm going to get a little ranty because I feel very passionate about one part of it. We are digging into it with Dr. Mikala Albertson, and it is so fun. If you ever wondered, why am I just not in the mood? Why do I walk in a room and forget things? Why am I having hot flashes? Why am I fatigued? Why in the world do I wake up at 3 a.m. or 3:30 a.m. and I can't get back to sleep? We have answers for you. We have solutions. And I give a little bit of the backstory about why women have been denied this basic medical treatment for so long, based on data that never should have been in the protocols. Again, I'm getting ranty just thinking about it. We have a great show with Dr. Mikala. We're going to have fun. I'm going to give you all sorts of information. We're going to get into it. And now, without further ado, here's my new friend, Dr. Mikala Albertson. Mikala, you have written an amazing book, Everything I Wish I Could Tell You About Midlife. As a 48-year-old woman, I read this quickly. I read it on the couch, surrounded by all my boys and my husband while they watched football. And I was like, I wish I had this book 10 years ago.
Sure.
It's phenomenal. One thing I want to really focus in on this conversation is perimenopause, because not enough people understand it. There are so many misconceptions out there about what to do. What do you feel like is some of the biggest misconceptions women have about it?
And so I think one of the biggest misconceptions is like, you absolutely don't have to experience any symptoms or have any, like everything is fixable. That's the most frustrating part for me. So I'm trying to offer with this book, like a more realistic approach and how can we help you through this time, maybe alleviating some symptoms, but very much everyone's going through menopause who has a uterus and ovaries and lives to be old enough, right? So how can we do it in a more comfortable way?
Which makes sense because you're a doctor and you're not a marketer trying to sell people products to quote unquote alleviate everything. For me, it was a game changer when I learned, okay, I think the average age of menopause in women is 55. Is that correct?
51.
51. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And you can have perimenopause symptoms up to 5-10 years before.
That's correct.
And for me, it really hit me all at once. It was over the summer. I began waking up at 3 a.m. and I'm a great sleeper, but I'm waking up at 3 or 3:30 and I'd be like, oh, great. Here's the time. And I'd eat, I'd read, I would listen to, all sorts of things trying to get me back to sleep. I'd listen to a boring book, a boring nonfiction book on Audible. I'd do all the things. And then over the summer, I took 2 of my boys to an amusement park and we were staying at a house. One of them got COVID. And so it was up north, so it wasn't too bad. But I had the doors open and the windows open because I'm trying for the rest of us not to catch it. And as I'm packing us up to fly home, I got hot and I was like, wow, the house isn't even all that hot, but maybe it's my stress. I don't know. And I had to go sit in the car with the air conditioner on. And then when I got home a few days later, I was doing the dishes and it happened again. And I was like, I don't know. I'm just hot and uncomfortable and I don't know what's going on. And then one of my team members said, that's a hot flash. You're having hot flashes and you're waking up in the middle of the night. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
Because she had been saying that she started hormone replacement therapy and it really got her life back. And so I was like, yeah, I don't know. But I'll tell you, hot flash number 2 and waking up maybe the 10th time in the middle of the night, I was like, I am going to start looking into this. So we know hot flashes are big. Waking up in the middle of the night are big. What are some maybe symptoms, some things that happen to women that sometimes they don't know is part of it, or kind of surprising parts of perimenopause?
Yeah, I think we always think about menstrual irregularity first, and that is kind of the hallmark symptom. At some point during this menopausal transition, everyone will begin to have some menstrual irregularity, but it kind of starts subtly at first. And so I do feel like that's often the conversation that I'll have. Like, I'm still having regular periods. They're just different than they used to be. And so early in that transition, periods may start coming a little bit closer together, actually. The cycle may feel a little bit shorter. And then many, many women complain that it's a little bit heavier. Usually like 1 or 2 days of their period will be heavier. And then later in that transition, the periods may start spacing out a little bit, or you may occasionally start missing one. So I think that's a little bit easier to say, okay, like my periods have changed, especially once you start missing one or they start spacing out a little bit, then we can call that pretty easily perimenopause. But that often isn't the way that it starts. It starts kind of like what you described, where it's like, what the heck was that? Was that a hot flash? And I'm 45. I don't have a ton of hot flashes yet, but occasionally I will. And the first time it was like, am I having a panic attack? Like, what is happening? Because it feels awful when you get that hot. And sometimes it can come along with heart palpitations or other things that actually feel a little bit scary. So at first, generally women don't even know what that is. And a lot of times looking back then, once they've begun having this conversation or they go in to talk to their doctor, it's like, oh yeah, I'm not sleeping as well. And I thought that was maybe just, I was stressed out. Or I do feel a little bit more like I can't concentrate on things. Like I feel a little bit foggy, especially in and around those cycles. If you're still having regular cycles, really, if we go through like the whole list of things, symptoms that can come along with perimenopause, it affects almost nearly every organ system. So a lot of times it's only when we look back and we kind of look at that list and go, oh yeah, I've got 3 or 4 of those now that you mention it.
Yeah, totally. For me also, I would be on a coaching call with a client and getting ready to give them great advice. And I would just forget words or forget what I was about to say. And this had been going on for a couple of years. It didn't happen all the time, but it happened. And I thought, as a speaker, what am I going to do if I'm on stage? And I just can't remember what my train of thought was. And I blank. And I didn't realize that, losing words and forgetting what we were about to say and walking into a room. Now, sure, walking into a room and not remembering why you came in there, it could be stress, of course.
Sure.
But all of this is a sign of perimenopause. And we don't necessarily have to, in our late 30s or 40s or 50s, go, oh, this is just how it is. My brain's in slow decline.
Right. I do think it helps to even just name what it is, because for the most part, like it still is a little bit like changes with your cycle. And so I personally, and from talking to so many women, it's usually kind of in that PMS time or those few days before that it's like, wow, my brain is real foggy. You're going to have to remind me what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
The other really encouraging thing to know is that after we go through menopause, that symptom seems to kind of fix itself. So it's not permanent. It's not forever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so fascinating. I'd love to talk about the flawed data from the Women's Health Initiative just a little bit, because when I first went for my physical and talked to my doctor about hormone replacement therapy, he said, oh, absolutely not. It puts you in so much risk. My cousin is a physician, and she said, what age was your doctor? And I said, 50-ish. She said, we were all trained in medical school to stay far away from hormones because of the Women's Health Initiative study that is completely flawed. She said, I take hormones. For so many women that I know, again, this is an N of 1, but for so many women that I know, they're going to their doctor and their doctor's like, absolutely not. Stay far away from it. This is ridiculous. And we've had to go, okay, let me find an online doctor. Let me find people who actually are educated in this and aren't just scaring women. And that's an unfortunate place that women find themselves.
That they're in. And I know that that's super frustrating. Studies, I think for a long time were like, oh, women are just smaller men. So we can just like study men and then it can be universally applied to the population. And that isn't true. And that isn't fair. And that's really sucky. And I understand women's frustration. I hope that we are in a time of that changing. And I hope that women can still, it's okay to shop around for a provider. I love seeing that like menopause clinics are cropping up, like within our university system, there's a menopause clinic. I still feel like it's important to operate within the guidelines of medicine because women also deserve good science. And so we can't just be like, oh, there's a lack, so let's just like throw everything at it and hope it turns out okay. I still believe that we deserve good medicine, good science. We deserve an evidence-based approach. So I think we're finding that turn. I think there are providers who have learned a lot and are learning. And hopefully you can shop around a little and find one that is okay. In the back of the book, I sort of point people to some places where they can go for research and reading and a place that will be constantly updated as things change. So I like to point people to like the Menopause Society, and they have a really user-friendly, anyone can go on and read it and kind of understand what are the current recommendations. And so I think you can go find a provider that can help you and make sure that that provider is kind of operating under those guidelines. If they're doing something that's way out of the norm, that may not be healthy for you either.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Let's talk about progesterone and estrogen, testosterone as women are going through perimenopause. I know it's very individual for every woman, but you got to go through what each of those does in our system and kind of as a tracking trend, what happens in perimenopause and menopause.
We have found that estrogen and progesterone both are really important in other areas of the body. And so as estrogen declines, because we're not always producing as much and we may not even be ovulating anymore, women will notice changes in their joints because it's like a good, strong anti-inflammatory. It also causes changes in just the lining, the mucosal lining of different areas. So that's why you get like itchy ears. Sometimes because that mucosal lining has changed. And then that's where all the vaginal symptoms of menopause come from. Without that estrogen signal, there can be some thinning there. And that can cause dryness and irritation and pain, and actually a lot of urinary tract infections because we don't quite have that barrier anymore to keep bacteria out. So that's why we have such a wide range of symptoms. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've been spending weeks doing research on a skincare episode. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I found in the research, which was so surprising, is estrogen is needed in collagen production. So that's why when women hit menopause, sometimes the skin just deteriorates really quickly. Mm-hmm. So we actually need estrogen to keep our skin looking healthy so we can make collagen. That was fascinating. Does estrogen have anything to do with hair loss, or is that progesterone?
I think they both can. I think that thinning is normal and it comes with those hormonal changes. And so we are just, if you look at like the dermis and how skin looks and like where the hair follicle comes out, I mean, any of those changes that we're seeing like on our skin are happening there and below. And that's where our hair comes from. That's where our hair follicle grows. And so, yeah, we can blame it on that for sure.
Fascinating. What about progesterone? What is a lack of that as we're in perimenopause and menopause? What else does that play into?
Progesterone is hard because one of the things that we treat perimenopausal symptoms with is we try to suppress ovulation sometimes when women are still having cycles. And so you can do that with progesterone alone. Some people can't tolerate taking estrogen, and so we'll use progesterone only. Maybe women remember when you were pregnant and then you had your baby and they gave you just a progesterone only pill because you could take it during breastfeeding and it wouldn't suppress your breast milk as much. So it can just be used as a way to suppress ovulation. If we have too much progesterone sometimes, so some people couldn't tolerate taking a birth control pill or don't like taking progesterone because it can cause like headaches and tiredness. A lot of people who take that feel tired. And so I feel like progesterone is not one where we can say definitively, this hormone does this, and when you don't have it, you feel this, as much as we can with estrogen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then some women, as they're in perimenopause, will also, or menopause, take testosterone. What is that indicated for, and why would that be prescribed?
So I think testosterone is prescribed a lot. And I am seeing sometimes when I think it's misprescribed a little bit. So the real indication for that is primarily for libido. So some of the low libido or difficulty with orgasm or achieving orgasm, desire, testosterone is indicated for that right now. I do think that women will feel other things. I mean, if you think about what testosterone does in men, it helps with muscle mass, muscle production. I mean, people misuse testosterone, right? To build up their muscles. But right now, we aren't giving that to help maintain women's muscle mass. And certainly the risk of using testosterone is your voice can deepen. You can get some of those more masculine features. So right now, libido is primarily what it's given for.
Okay. I literally have zero experience or knowledge about this. So this is fun that I ask. I would worry about taking testosterone because I would worry it would make me a little testier and a little more aggressive.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's
so
a
that
real
is
thing.
a yes.
And then hair, you'll grow some hair that maybe you've always tried to avoid having.
I don't need a mustache.
Yeah. And then if you're already noticing some thinning of hair, I mean, male pattern baldness can be like so, I mean, all of those things that men have to deal with, you know, with their hormone, their primary hormone can happen if you're taking testosterone. So there are safe ways to do it, right? And we're certainly not giving that amount of dosing to women, but right now libido is the main thing that we're treating.
That makes sense. Last thing I would love to hear about the weight gain around the belly in perimenopause. What is happening there? What's the story? What do we need to know?
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one, right? A lot of women complain about weight gain during this time, and I really think it's multifactorial. So I know that I'm not as active now as I was when I was 20 and still playing like intramural soccer. And, you know, so I do think activity level contributes, how we're eating contributes. We really actually don't see a slowing of metabolism until later, like toward our 60s. Although I think if you talk to any woman in their 40s, they're like, what? That cannot be true because I feel like my metabolism is slower now. I used to be able to eat whatever I want. So I do think it's multifactorial. But because of those hormonal changes, we find that like our body composition changes a little bit. So where we carry our extra fat just sort of redistributes a little bit. And it's in that midsection. Some of that is like up above. You know, you can feel it, you can pinch it. Some of that is what's called visceral fat. And that's the fat that is in and around our organs. And so again, I don't think you're going to take hormones to necessarily improve that. I don't think taking menopausal hormone therapy will improve that, but certainly that's really responsive to our activity and our exercise and how we're eating. So I think that if you're in your later 30s, now is the time to like kind of begin making those changes that maybe you've always known you're supposed to be doing, but like you haven't been great about it because you're having kids and, you know, you're doing all these things, but like make it a priority now and then continue that, hopefully long term, to help stave that off a bit.
That's fantastic. I remember it was a huge bummer when I heard about the research that our metabolism actually doesn't slow down until we're much, much older and we're just moving less. That was a huge bummer, but it is good to know so we can kind of hold ourselves accountable. And we're all beholden to the rule of thermodynamics that, you know, it's what we eat and how we move. And that's such a bummer. There are lots of conditions that affect
sleep
it,
and stress and maybe the medications that we're taking and all of those things. I like to point out that I was much thinner when I was in my 20s. I ran and ran a lot, but I don't think I was necessarily healthier then because for me, I ran to be thin and I ate to be thin. And I actually really am proud of changing that thought pattern in my mind. And so I do way more than I would like to even, and I definitely way more than I was in my 20s. But the way that I care for my body and the way that I fuel my body and all the food groups and the nutrient dense foods that I eat now and how I exercise, gosh, I wish I could have given that to 20-year-old me. I just didn't know and I didn't care. And I think that being thin and being that ideal version came above all else. So I wasn't caring for myself very well. And so I know that weight is really, really tricky, but I also know we've all been trained for like, what does fit or healthy look like? And what is the ideal body type out there? And I would really love to change that narrative. So I think we can take care of our bodies in a much better way without the focus on what our weight is or appearance.
Amen to that. Yeah. At 48, I am in much better health and condition than I was at 28.
Yeah.
Even if I'm about 10 pounds heavier. And I'll say, a few of those pounds are muscle, I'm proud to say.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
Right. But was I eating microgreens at 28 and making sure I took all my supplements? No, absolutely not. It's running on fumes.
I spent a lot of time on like the not eating food groups at all. I mean, if you watched what I ate and how I treated myself in college, it would be like, no, that's not what we're going for at all anymore. So I just want us all to remember that as we head forward. Like, I may look a little different, and that's okay. That's kind of how it works. And now look at how I can take care of myself. I wish I could have offered that to younger me.
I love that. This has been so helpful. Thank you for all the great information. Are you ready for some fun questions?
Sure.
Okay. Number 1, what's your Enneagram number?
I wonder if you can guess. I'm an Enneagram 2, the helper.
Oh, a helper. Well, of course you are.
Yeah.
As the physician that you are. I love that. That's great. How does that play out for you, and how do you need to keep it in check?
So I have to keep that in check because I have a tendency toward people pleasing. And I have a tendency toward codependency. When you read, like, what are the things? I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally me. That's me. My husband's actually a recovering drug and alcohol addict. And so I'm like, oh, we just fit that like perfectly. So yeah, I've taken the Enneagram a couple of times, and I'm sometimes like a wing 3. So I'm like a helper, achiever type of person. But I think a lot of that achieving was people pleasing. Yeah. And so that's where I have to keep that in check. So yeah, I am learning how to let people maybe not like me sometimes and be okay with that.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I can see the wing 3. I mean, you have written 2 books. You have a lot going on. So yeah. I love that. And I love that you're intentionally putting boundaries up to make sure you're living out the best version of the personality that God gave you. I think that's really beautiful.
Working on it. Yeah.
What about a song that you have on repeat right now?
My favorite artist right now is Gregory Alan Isaacoff. If you know him.
I've never heard. No, this is fun.
Like indie folk a little bit. So I just love him. We went to a concert in August for my birthday. So I've seen him live twice now, which is awesome. But yeah, my favorite song is called The Stable Song. And he has a recording that he has done with the Colorado Symphony. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
Lovely. So singer-songwriter.
Singer-songwriter, yes.
That's my jam. I love a new singer-songwriter.
He's like a goat farmer in his off time, which I just think is so interesting. But anyway, yeah, he's my favorite. So that's my soundtrack to my life right now.
I will check him out. And The Stable Song is the favorite at the moment. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
What about a TV show that you're loving or a movie that you've seen and loved?
So I'm really pretty boring there. I tend to, at the end of the night, want to watch something that takes almost no mental capacity, that I can just like lay on the couch and zone out to, and like maybe kind of fall asleep to. And so my go-tos are The Office and Schitt's Creek. And so I kind of toggle back and forth between those. And my family knows, like, when those come on, like, oh, mom's haven't, like, she's done for the night. She's going to sleep really soon. And so anything we need is, not from her.
I love that. So those are your emotional support shows.
They are. And when I can't sleep during the night, if I have an early morning wait time, I will just go down and pop in an episode real quiet, and I'll be asleep in no time.
I love that. My kids joke now that if it's after 5 p.m., they can't come to me with something big.
Oh.
Like one of my sons said to another son, like, it's evening. You're going to have to book time with mom during regular business hours because she doesn't need any stress at night. And I was like, yes, my brain is turned off. Thank you for recognizing that.
5 p.m. is a great boundary. I would say mine is like 8. But I'm probably pushing that a little because at 8, if you come to me, I'm going to be real snippy about it. So not only do I just want to be off, like, I just can't even, it's real hard for me to even be like kind of nice or helpful.
Yeah. I think they've realized because I work at home. So from 5 to 6, I'm still transitioning from business mom to mom.
Yeah.
So don't bring me anything or else you don't know what kind of answer you're going to get. And then after 6, I'm trying to chill. So unless it's really important, they gotta time it during normal working business hours. Tell me in the morning before school.
Okay,
If
in
they're
the
not in
morning.
school, tell me during the day, but I need my evenings to relax. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Certainly don't come with any kind of project or anything.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I have only helped with a school project with a child once.
Oh, good for you.
Out
Yeah.
of 5 children, everyone talks about the 5th grade country project. They always had the worst one in the class. I just wasn't doing it. That's not the kind of mom I was. Okay, let's talk about a book that you're recommending. Fiction, nonfiction, something that
Okay.
you loved.
Yeah. I read mostly nonfiction. I'm in a
Mhm.
book club right now reading some fiction, and it's tricky
Mhm.
for me. I think I get so invested in it that I can't pick it up and put it down. And
Yep.
so sometimes fiction makes me a little bit crazy because I just want to know. So anyway, the book I'm recommending right now and the book I just read is called You'll Make It and They Will Too. It's a book about parenting teenagers. And it's so
Oh.
good. I have 3 teenagers and a tween right now.
Mhm.
And so I am just right in the thick of parenting teens. And
Yep.
this book is just so great at telling real stories and giving some practical advice and helping you feel okay, it's not just you. Everyone else is having these issues too.
That's great. That's a great recommendation. Now, my final question, favorite product that you told somebody they needed to.
Oh, yeah. Again, I'm a little bit boring here, but I actually feel like this product is life-changing. So, yeah, I have a migraine hat
Mm-hmm.
that I wear that you keep in
With
the
the ice in
fridge.
it?
Yes.
Yeah.
You keep it in the freezer and it has a little bit of gentle compression and it covers your eyes. And I almost always get a pretty bad headache in and around my period.
Mhm.
And so a few days before my period, I'm wearing that migraine hat around the house. And
Oh,
it
so
helps me so much.
proactively. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of already feel a little like the headache is coming, but
Yeah.
I know I can feel it coming. So I can take some ibuprofen or Tylenol, migraine hat, and it does help so much.
That's great. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I bought one for one of my sons to try out at one point, so we will link it in the show notes. That's so
Yes. So
fun.
help. Also, it works as a really great signal that you are done for the evening.
Yeah.
If you're laying on the couch with a migraine hat covering your eyes, that's all
And
the
the
boundary.
office is on in the background.
And the office is on. That's all the boundary you need for mom is done for this evening.
Well, that's fantastic. Again, your wonderful book that I wish I had 10 years ago, Everything I Wish I Could Tell You About Midlife, is out right now. Tell everyone where they could find you.
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Mikala Albertson, MD. I also started a little Instagram page that is only health related. So I don't really talk about family stuff or post much personal stuff on there. It's called Be Well-ish. And then I have a website, MikalaAlbertsonMD.com.
That's so fun. Thanks again for joining me on the show. Can't wait to have you on again.
Thanks so much, Allie.
How great is she, right? I told you I get a little hot under the collar about some parts of this topic. Just knowing that women for a whole generation were made to suffer, to be told, no, hormone replacement therapy is terrible. And we'll talk more with more guests that come on the show when it is something that is protective against dementia. It is protective against heart disease. It's protective against bone loss. It's protective, again, just in the aesthetics with helping our skin look better. This is important. If you want to know more about the studies, the Women's Health Initiative, how they were flawed, how that flawed research has been used to keep this away from women, and all of the new research that's been done that shows it's safe, I've recommended it before to you. There's a book called Estrogen Matters that is a very important read, especially if you see a doctor who goes, oh, no, the risks are too high. It even goes into estrogen safety for women who have had breast cancer. Again, you want to go by all of the studies. You want to go by the research, not just one physician's opinion. Now, back to today. I am, of course, giving away copies of Mikala's book, just take a screenshot of this, share it on Instagram, share it on a Facebook story, tag me, tag Mikala, and you will be entered to win. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching on YouTube. Make sure that you've subscribed and you like the video and leave a comment, and you'll be entered to win as well. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you listen. I'm grateful that you watch. I'm grateful that you are investing in yourself. I'm grateful that you are a woman who cares, that you are a woman who isn't beaten down by life, that you're a woman who goes, the storms of life may come, but I'm going to keep fighting back. I've got the Holy Spirit in me. I can do this. This is why you're here every week. It's why you're learning something new. It's why you're investing in yourself, because your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, the success of everything you do in your work, it doesn't just benefit you, it benefits everyone that your life affects. And I believe in what's inside of you. I believe in your dreams, and I know you're making an impact on this world for good. That's why you're here. It's why you do what you do every day. God has created you to stand strong and bring something special and unique to this world that only you can bring. And I love that I get to coach you and equip you every week. So keep stepping up, keep showing up, and keep loving well, because you know the truth. You cannot break a woman who gets her strength from God. I hope you have a great day, and I'll be back with you Thursday. No one isn't, I don't know what I was going to say. I was going to say, so fun. Well, thanks again for having, let me try that again. You need to know. That's not how I want to start it. Stop.